So, what if monk Gyatso survived? So there's four possible scenarios in which this could have happened. In the first scenario, maybe monk Gyatso survived the Fire Nation assault, but stayed in the Southern Air Temple, was trapped in there, hid there for a long time. And then maybe 100 years later, Aang, Katara, and Sokka find Gyatso. And so Gyatso just joins Team Avatar. And I think in that scenario, the series would just play out the same way it did in the original timeline, except Aang would have Gyatso, and that would make Aang feel so much better, and that would be awesome. Now, in the second, third, and fourth scenario, they're all a little different, but they all turn out the same. So, in the second scenario, let's say that Gyatso escapes the Fire Nation. So, Gyatso escapes the Air Temples while the Southern Air Temple, while the Fire Nation is attacking. So, Gyatso escapes Southern Air Temple, and Gyatso is a survivor. In the third scenario, let's go with the second scenario for a moment. So if Gyatso escaped the Air Temple during the Fire Nation assault, it's possible the Fire Nation would realize that he escaped and they would hunt him down and kill him anyway. So maybe in that scenario, Gyatso would actually still die. But let's just say he survived. So that's one scenario. That's the second scenario. In the third scenario, let's say Gyatso left the Air Temple before the Fire Nation invaded, because maybe Gyatso was looking for Aang. In the fourth scenario, Gyatso ran away with Aang. So before Aang could run away, Gyatso caught up with him and they ran away together. So whatever the scenario is, let's say in the scenario where Gyatso escaped the fire, let's just go with a scenario where Gyatso went after Aang and tried to find him. And then the Fire Nation attacked the Air Temples and wiped them out while Gyatso was looking for Aang. I think in that case, the Fire Nation would probably not know that Gyatso survived. So it'd be a lot harder for them. So just to recap, to summarize, in the first scenario, Gyatso just stays in the Southern Air Temple for 100 years. He's the only survivor, and he meets up with Aang during the original timeline of the series, and the series is pretty much the same, except the only difference is Gyatso is alive. In the second scenario, Gyatso escapes during the Fire Nation assault, but the Fire Nation catches up to him and kills him. In this third scenario, Gyatso runs away with Aang. In the fourth scenario, Gyatso finds Aang. So I think that the third and fourth scenario wouldn't be that different, in that if Gyatso was already there with Aang, then they'll just hear about the Air genocide and then go from there. Whereas if Gyatso is looking for Aang and he finds him later, then he just finds him and they go from there. So let's just say Gyatso, I know this, I'm just talking a lot of this, a little confusing, but we'll go with a scenario that Aang ran away like he did in the original timeline, but Gyatso went after him. And I think Gyatso was probably planning on going after Aang at some point, but the Fire Nation attacked and Gyatso ended up dying, so that's why he didn't go after Aang. I think that if Gyatso went searching for Aang, I think Gyatso and his Sky Bison would eventually find Aang and Appa. And so Gyatso finds Aang and Appa and frees them, and so they have two Sky Bison, and Aang and Gyatso. And the problem is, now the Fire Nation has wiped out all of the air nomads, all of them. So Gyatso and Aang are technically fugitives, so they have to be careful. Now, the Southern Water Temple is, the Southern Water Tribe is nearby, because Aang is nearby the Southern Water Tribe. So I think Gyatso, even though he wanted Aang to grow up as a kid and have fun, Gyatso would realize that the moment is pretty severe now and that Aang needs to have some training. So, and just as a side note, I understand why Gyatso wanted Aang to grow up and have fun as a kid, whereas the elder monks wanted Aang to go train in the Eastern Air Temple and just get through his Avatar journey and get ready, basically, for the dark times ahead. But I mean, both scenarios were not going to work, because if Aang had just stayed there and been a kid, then he would have been wiped out during the Air Nomad genocide. Or if Aang had gone to the Eastern Air Temple and trained harder, Aang would have just been wiped out during the Air Nomad genocide. So either way, Aang would have died, so him running away was actually a good thing. But moving on from that, aside note, I think that Gyatso would realize that Aang needed to be trained as the Avatar, and Gyatso would take Aang to the Southern Water Tribe. And I think Southern Water Tribe being so isolated from the rest of the world, even if Fire Lord Sozin, we know he went looking, and there was a scene where Fire Lord Sozin actually passed over Aang's iceberg, which is funny, but I don't think. Let's say in this scenario, it's possible that in this scenario, maybe Fire Lord Sozin does find Aang and Gyatso in the Southern Water Tribe, and he tries to get them, but Aang and Gyatso manage to defeat Sozin or something, or not. I mean, who knows? But that's a little too complicated, so let's not go down there. But let's say Gyatso takes Aang to the Southern Water Tribe, and Aang asks Southern Waterbending masters to help him, and so Aang learns waterbending and masters it. And then I think Gyatso would probably take Aang to maybe the Fire Sages or somewhere. Gyatso would take Aang to see Roku and have Roku give Aang advice too, and maybe Gyatso would also talk to Aang. I mean, Gyatso would also talk to Roku as well and catch up with the old friend. But yeah, so Gyatso would take Aang to the Southern Water Tribe. Aang would learn waterbending, and then Gyatso would take Aang to the Earth Kingdom, to Omashu, and Aang would learn earthbending from Bumi. And then Gyatso and Bumi and Aang would be Team Avatar, and Aang would probably go and learn firebending from maybe dragons, which there would be more dragons at that point in time. And then, so Aang would master all the elements, and then maybe he would confront Sozin when Sozin is like 100 years old, and then kill Sozin, or defeat Sozin, and bring peace to the world that way. And in this scenario, obviously, Gyatso is the last airbender along with Aang, so Gyatso would have to have children and have descendants to keep the air nomad line going. But yeah, I think that's what would happen. I think if Gyatso had left the air temple before the genocide and found Aang, then things could have turned out differently. And obviously, as I mentioned, those are the scenarios, so fun to think about.